Good morning, esteemed viewers and followers, wherever you might be getting our signals from. This is Fine TV Gambia, your only viewpoint. It is, of course, your current affairs program that comes your way every Sunday from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. This program will feature young intellectuals, who will delve into current happenings within the Gambia and beyond. They will not only, discuss on causes, but will also give you remedies to certain problems that our country and, of course, the world is facing as of now. And then it will be an insightful discussion. I remain your host, Ibrahim Bay. Today with me here, I have a young Gambian intellectual by the name Muhammed Lamin Dibba. And of course, Dibba is pursuing his master's degree in international and development studies, specializing in mobility, migration, and boundaries at the Geneva Graduate Institute in Switzerland. Additionally, Muhammad is also interested in state building, local governance and international migration. Welcome to Fine TV, Mr. Dibba.
Thank you very much.
It is a huge pleasure having you here on our platform. Mr. Dibba, before we proceed with our proceedings, we've learned that you are an MA candidate at the Geneva, a Graduate Institute. Muhammad, take us through your academic journey.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mbai, for inviting me to this very important program. Good morning or good afternoon, viewers, wherever you might be. I'm sending you warm greetings. Yes, basically, I started from Nyako Nursery School in 1997 after 3 years. Then I moved to Larikunda Savage Lower Basic School, where I did my primary education. Then, after primary 6, I proceeded to Upper Basic School, Larikunda Upper Basic School, where I did my grade 7 to 9. Then after sitting for my Gabesi exams, then I transferred to Mazru Senior Secondary School, where I did my high school. From Mazru Senior Secondary School, I wasn't hesitant to get enrollment at the Gambia College on the School of Education, where I did SES, Social and Environmental Studies, and General Science. After 3 years, then I graduated in 2016 from the Gambia College. But whilst, in fact, at the Gambia College, in 2015, in my second year, I get enrolled at the Management Development Institute to study Diploma in Peace and Conflict. And then in 2016, I graduated from the Gambia College. 2015, December, I graduated from the MDI on my Diploma in Peace and Conflict Studies. And then I proceeded to the University of the Gambia to pursue bachelor's degree in political science. After my bachelor's degree in political science, I was working for 1 year before proceeding to do my master's degree at the Geneva Graduate Institute in Switzerland, where I am currently a candidate, actually done with my coursework, and I'm now writing my thesis.
Interesting journey. And Muhammad has, undergone so many, ways before he reached where he is today. So, Muhammad, we've learned also you are also at the Geneva, Graduate Institute. So, Muhammad, how would you describe this particular institute?
The Geneva Graduate Institute is one of the best institutes in the whole world. Was established since 1927 as the premier institute of the study of international relations, and it has been on development issues since 1960s. The Graduate Institute has taught and graduated renowned global figures. In fact, one of the greatest diplomats of all time, Kofi Annan.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. We also have the former president of Switzerland, Kalmarai, who also graduated from the Graduate Institute, and of course the former president of the International Federation of Red Cross, whom I was also privileged to meet, Jean Jacques Morillo. So a host of dignitaries around the world. So the Graduate Institute purposely was established to respond to development challenges and crises of international relations around the world. And one of the reasons why I love the Institute so much is its very proximity to the United Nations organizations, because Geneva is the melting pot of diplomacy, IR, and development. And the Institute offers a lot of exciting opportunities, and one among them is the Applied Research Project that all the main, that is those in the interdisciplinary programs benefited from. For instance, I was sent to UNHCR, United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, and the Global Protection Center about 6 to 7 months to work on internal displacements of and forced returnees of migrants from Mozambique, Nigeria, Myanmar, and Niger. And this was a very great experience. That is to hone and enhance my skills so that I'll not be able to only write national policies, but also international policy papers, but also look at problems from diverse perspectives to be able to respond to them adequately. So that was an enhancing and a very, very exciting experience. So I have some of my colleagues who were sent to IOM, who were sent to different United Nations organizations. So this is one of the main reasons why I opted to go for the Graduate Institute.
Interesting. Mr. Dibba, I did hear you say that, I mean, you are sent to the UNHCR, if I'm right. I mean, on a practical basis, almost, I mean, 7 months. I mean, how were you able to, I mean, get this from that particular, I mean, institute that you are sent to this particular, I mean, commission on refugees?
Basically, it is part of our curriculum, because listening from the coordinator of our Apply Research project, that the Graduate Institute graduated a lot of brilliant students, but one thing is missing is most of them are not able to write international policy papers. And so for us to be able to acquire those skills, because most of the times, most of the graduates from the institute work within international organizations or intergovernmental organizations. So before graduating, you are sent to these institutions to work with them based on your interest, based on your choices and preferences, so that you'll be able to understand how to write these international policy papers, how to understand their work culture, also how to understand the organizational setup. So it's more or less, not an internship, but more or less that. So that way you also have the opportunity to network with high-profile individuals, whom you learn a lot of ideals, values from. And then it also makes you competent in your area of specialization. For instance, today in the Gambia, especially during the separatist movement conflict with the Senegalese soldiers in the Gambian borders, we have a lot of Gambians at the border communities, especially in the Fojis, who are internally displaced within the Gambia. So I can bring that into context to be able to help or support, or better still advise the government on policies on how to
tackle those issues.
Exactly. So that is the basic idea about it. So my ARP was, forced return and relocation of IDPs from Mozambique, Nigeria, Niger, and Myanmar.
Interesting. So, I mean, what were some of the benefits, I mean, that you gained from that particular sort of an internship for almost 6 to 7 months?
So, well, I was able to build the right network with people that I worked with, and also one of the key benefits that I earn is my ability to be able to be in a professional benchmark to prove myself even where impossible, because I was the only Gambian, actually, in fact the only African in my cohort at the mobility and migration track. And throughout my entire studies in the Gambia, I've never had that privilege to be sent to a particular institution, except for recently the University of the Gambia introduced what we called, I forget the name of the program, graduate scheme. Yeah, introduced the graduate scheme where some of us were sent to Banjul City Council to work with the council. But this is an entirely different project. But this one we are so much involved because we advise the UNHCR. So that hones my skill, that enables us to go far beyond what is expected of us, to make sure that we provide an advocacy tool, that will be able to shape the trajectory of problems, intractable challenges that, IDPs who are forced to return to their natural habitats that have been marred with conflict or violence or environmental degradation. So that ability to network, the ability to integrate myself, and that ability to convince policymakers through the documents that we wrote and then through the presentations we had with them at the UNHCR building was really a life-changing experience for me. And there's no place on earth where I will go now without being able to express myself or without being able to argue based on the interest of the people that I represent, especially when it regards to migrants, because I'm able to do it at a higher level beyond expectations.
That's great. And of course, Mohammed, I would love to congratulate you at this juncture for being the only African, let me say, like, not only Gambian, but African to be in the cohort of mobility and migration track.
2020, 2022 to 2024, yeah.
Okay, exactly. I mean,
Okay.
congratulations. I
Thank
think,
you.
I mean, anybody watching down there would really, I mean, join their hands for, I mean, this young man here. So, like I mentioned, it will be an insightful discussion. So, if you are following, you are following Fine TV Gambia, your only viewpoint, and of course, it is your current affairs program here at Fine TV Gambia. Mr. Dibba, I apologize.
That's fine.
I apologize. Mr. Dibba, I mean, how do you cope with the situation there? I mean, in Twitter, realizing that it is a different environment to that of Gambia. How do you go?
Yeah, we have to adjust to situations and circumstances. Switzerland, it's a very decent and a very decent country. A country that respects human rights, that respects people irrespective of the backgrounds they come from. And that is a core value in our institution, a very core value in the institute where I found myself. So I don't face any discrimination. I don't feel marginalized, and I don't feel dominated. I speak my mind whenever I desire to do so. I challenge authorities whenever it is necessary. And at the institute, people are open-minded. People are very kind. The professors are very nice. The administration, the same. They respond to our needs immediately. So I don't face any sort of that challenges. And that is why I'm so much comfortable. And I call Switzerland my second home.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting. And now, Mohammed, we realize that you are an MA candidate, I mean, at the Geneva Graduate Institute. So, Mohammed, and of course, specializing in mobility and, of course, migration and boundaries. Mohammed, why do you choose this particular journey or this academic pursuit than other academic pursuits?
True. So, this is how it all started. One day I was driving along the fringes of Kairaba Avenue with my former professor from the University of the Gambia, Dr. Ismail Assise. Then I newly graduated from the University of the Gambia. So, because I already wrote my thesis on involuntary immobility and its consequences on youth unemployment in the Gambia, looking at the aspirations of young people to migrate, but inability to do so.
Absolutely.
So when I asked him, what did you think I should do for my master's degree? Because I was still pathfinding. It was between international relations, African studies, and international development. So we weighed the option, we feel that I need to do international development. So, but in international development is broad. Do I need to specialize on conflict, peace, and security? I said no, but I did diploma in peace and conflict. So I want to do something different. I look at environment and sustainability. I feel I might not be too competent, and then there are a lot of people already doing issues regarding the environment. So looking at sustainable trade and finances, I don't have economic background.
Absolutely.
So I decided to go in for migration. So as I started thinking about doing anything about migration, I was fortunate to be engaged with International Organization for Migration at the Communications Unit, where I was privileged to work with the Migration Information Center in the Gambia across the regions, especially notably North Bank, LRR, and West Coast region. So I was helping in the assisting voluntary integration of returnees, but also doing advocacy on behalf of IOM on safe alternatives of irregular migrants, in potential safe alternatives, providing safe alternatives for potential irregular migrants, but also help returnees to integrate into the community and contribute to national development. So thereafter, I was privileged to work with Global Consulting as a project officer. So we had a contract with Altai Consulting looking at threat monitoring, learning on migration, return, and reintegration. So I was all over the country to do mapping. And then shortly before I left for Switzerland, I worked with Jobs Consulting Gambia at the Department of Labor. And then we negotiated for the refurbishment of the first ever job center in the Gambia. Basically, not only for young people that are based in the country, but young people who will be repatriated back from their transit countries on their way to Europe, and young people who will be deported, so that they could have access to the job center and then find opportunities. So having all these interactions with migrants, both irregular migrants in particular, I felt the need that I could do something about this. And for me to do anything productive and better about this, I have to go and study. I have to go and educate myself. So that is the reason why I applied to the Graduate Institute, and then I was enrolled in the mobility track. And then, yeah, here I am. And whilst in fact in Geneva, I host programs on migration issues.
Quite inspiring.
Yeah, whilst in Geneva, I have my own platform where I host events on migration issues. And sometimes it's in the open because Gunjur Online TV gave me the privilege. They stream it live for me on all the social media networks. If I want it to be highly professional and a closed door between only intellectuals, I make it on WebEx that was created by my school. WebEx is premium created by my school specifically for students who want to use it to do either meetings or conferences. So I've been so much involved in the discourses about migration. Yeah.
Quite important. Of course, I've been quite inspiring. And yesterday someone told me this, like when the person saw the flyer, the boy is from Gunjur. So when he saw the flyer, he was like, "Well, I can't wait to to hear from this man again." So that shows how impactful you've been to many Gambians. So Muhammad, having knowledge about migration. So, but for the case of the Gambia, we would specify to the backward journey. So Muhammad, going through some studies, what do you think are the causes of this backward journey?
A complex issue. Backway is a complex issue, and the causes of irregular migration is how would we say this in English? It's something that we all know, right? It's an open secret. Because if you have direct interaction with young people, why do you want to migrate? The first thing they will tell you is they don't have jobs. But even those who are employed will claim that they are not paid on the value of their labor.
Exactly.
So economic reasons, they want to go and seek for economic opportunities to get decent and sustainable jobs. It's true, if you look at the unemployment rate in the Gambia, we have for young people, it's about 45.3% of young people are unemployed out of 56.4% of the total population. So that's a huge unemployment gap.
Absolutely.
So that is one of the main reasons why young people wanted to migrate, unemployment. And secondly, environmental degradation and climate change. Because especially for young people who want to engage in subsistence agriculture, the lands are not they're fertile, but they are not very conducive for farming at some point, especially in the urban centers. And besides, we have so many population in the urban areas, and then the urban centers are very congested and opportunities are very scarce, making it difficult for young people to make it, especially the area of farming. So most of them will want to leave and go and seek opportunities elsewhere in Europe. And others feel unsafe. If you talk to certain people, they say there's high crime rate in the Gambia. High crime rate in the sense that they feel that their life is at risk, and most of the times when they find themselves lucky in Europe, they seek asylums based on that. So they don't feel safe. People believe that they have started business, and because of burglary and theft, they have lost everything, and they have lost hope in this country.
Yeah, and then
security is a threat, so they wanted to leave and go to countries, especially in Europe, that they will feel safe and secured and look for opportunities that will enhance their lives and livelihoods. So these are three main reasons why people wanted to undertake. And another thing is that people don't talk about social factor. One of my professors will say "jutinayacracy," in the sense that you and our mothers go to a ceremony. You're from Europe, right? You buy a car for your mom. Take your mom to Mecca, and I'm here. I could not do anything for my mother. If your mother goes to a wedding ceremony or a naming ceremony with a car parked with a driver, they will tend to respect your mother more. People will give your mother a chair to sit, and my mother will be treated differently. If you go to Europe and came back and meet me here, driving a nice car, you and I used to rock the streets together. I'll send you to go and buy attire and leave the change with you. Absolutely. Sometimes you feel bad about that. even though you might not want to say it. So these are social factors that encourages, that pushes people to go and seek for opportunities to better their lives so that they could also live decent, help themselves and their families.
And of course, I mean, some will tell you not because of, I mean, lack of employment, like you mentioned. Some would say like I am employed, but the salary I'm receiving is not sufficient to keep my family and I. So therefore, I have to go. So like people often understand that not only because of, I mean, lack of employment, but some will tell you even you are employed, I mean, the cash that you gain from that particular employment is not sufficient enough. So Mohammed, we realize that you are in deep into migration. So during your studies, I mean, or let me say, as you are studying, I think you understand. Oh, you are have you completed?
No. I'm writing my thesis right now. All my coursework is finished.
Thank you. Okay, so like during, I mean, your coursework, I mean, have you ever engaged yourself into research about migration, some of the factors that lead to migration and other stuff, I mean, relating to migration?
Yes, obviously before the end of every semester, you are required to write an academic essay. So I did that a lot. So one of the papers that I wrote was looking at procedures and outcomes of irregular migration from the Gambia into the Mediterranean region. And I'm now developing that into a thesis because it's an aspect of migration that is not covered. When I look at literatures, I haven't seen anybody that talks about the procedures and outcomes of irregular migration. What I always see is the impact and the effects. And this requires me to collect primary data. And today I'll conduct an observation grid in the coastal city of Gunjur. And then thereafter I will meet some migrants and I'll speak with them to ask to collect this primary information from them. But also wrote about the perception of returnees from the Gambia into Europe. So we look at different returnees. When I was in Geneva, I did that paper with two of my colleagues, Isabel and Kaya. One is a Swiss and one is from the Netherlands. So, because most of the times I try to convince or influence them so we could focus our research more in the Gambia, less so that we could also generate data, but also as part of our contribution to scholarship in the Gambia. So we look at perception of returnees, perception of Gambian communities on migrant returnees. So we look at different categories of returnees. Returnees who have gone to study or work and seek wealth and come back home, and returnees who have traveled through irregular migration journey have been deported or are stranded in the transit countries, either in Libya, in Niger, or in Tunisia, and are repatriated back. How do society treats them? How do society looks at them?
Quite important.
So we did this research. And then when it comes to employability, how is the local government and central government response to their employment? Because when returnees are back, most of the times they are given skills, like they are trained on skills. Because I remember that this EUTF fund was given to most African countries, from Guinea-Conakry to Mali and the Gambia. We call it the YEP, that's where the YEP project was established. So they provide training for these young people so that they will have skills and be productive and contribute to the economy. And those who have gone to study and have acquired their wealth, when they come back, how do society sees them? How do the government see them, both the central and the local government? And then how do their neighbors see them? So I try to look at all these things, citing case studies from Cameroon, from Nigeria, and also recounting experience that myself faced in the Gambia. But obviously, try to make calls back home, to hear from people directly. And that is right into the literatures. So I did that one. And my final article that I wrote was published by the Graduate Press, the Graduate Institute Press, actually, and it was widely published by most of the media outlets in the Gambia. That was irregular migration as a challenge to governance in the Gambia. We don't only look at the statistics or the problems that we are confronted with, but we also provide alternatives as a form of advice to the government. Because for me, I believe we should not only focus only about the problems. In as much as we understand the dynamics of our problems, we should also provide alternatives.
Solutions to those problems.
Exactly. And then my key of the ways in which we should tackle these problems is to do an assessment. Research is very important. either institutions of governments or bureaucracies responsible to do needs-based assessment, or to do a research to find out where exactly the problem lies. Because I cannot assume that Kekuta wants to go to Switzerland. I have to ask Kekuta first. I cannot be in my office and assume that this is what the people of Kombo Gunjur needs. I have to do an assessment. I cannot assume that, this is the problem of Banjul City Council or the National Assembly or the Office of the President without doing an assessment to find out. So I believe in empirics. And this is one of the key reasons, this is one of the things that I challenge the government to do so. We have National Youth Council, and we have the Ministry of Youth and Sports. Every now and then we have NECOFs, and there are resolutions. How often do we act on those resolutions? How often that government consider the needs and aspirations of young people? Because from 2017 to date, more young people have migrated to the back way than ever before, even though we have the EUTF funds from the European Union, to curb irregular migration and to support the governance processes. If you look at Mali, for instance, today, Mali also benefited from the EUTF, but today more young people from Mali migrated. And in fact, the EUTF was insufficient in a sense that, in fact, it created coup d'etat, because young people were disgruntled. The military was disgruntled. They feel alienated and they have to seize power because the system of government was not working in the interest they believe. You understand? So these are some of the things that central governments need to look at. These are some of the things that bureaucracies need to look at. And I don't believe that Europe is a solution to our problems.
Okay.
These funds should be solutions to, because there are structural problems, structural balance in our countries, in the African continent, in the Gambia, that we need to solve. We need to work on employment. We cannot provide jobs for everyone, but at least we need to make sure that the employment rate is very low. We have a lot of schools, but we need to make sure we equip those schools with teachers, with resources, and so on. But we also need to make sure that our education also corresponds with the labor market, so that students graduated from school
would have some
exactly. But in fact, we should also work on improving the integrated government pay scale. There are a lot of exploitation in the Gambia as well. You go to Jimpex, all of them are most of them are investors.
That's right.
When we say there are no investors in the Gambia, there are investors in the Gambia. Most of them are investors, but these young people have been exploited. Some have been discriminated, and they have been stigmatized. We have seen cases like Albiha's cases. Where some of these Indian brothers were discriminating, stigmatized, in fact, not paying people on the value of their labor. So there must be regulations in all those aspects to have young people stay into the country, seek for better lives. Because today, young people are saying they rather die at sea
than to stay in this country.
Look at what happened on the 31st of October 2023. A lot of young people from across the country, especially from Bakau, lost their lives.
Exactly.
But sometimes what we need is for government to come to our side and give confidence to the public. Either the presidency or the minister to talk to the people and meet the victims and give them assurances. That is also one of the, don't mistake, government sometimes is doing a very good job. There are areas that they are doing very well. What we are saying is they also need to improve, especially on the area of encouraging young people, and work with relevant private sectors to support, to support their cause, and then also listen to their advices. And then we move forward as a country, because, young people are not only future leaders, they are vital stakeholders in national development. You see, from history, I was telling my friend the other day, see, Lee Kuan Yew, Sadada Karabajawara, Benjamin Franklin, all these people were young when they were creating change in their countries.
That's right.
You understand? So, because they believe, even Edward Francis Small, right, at age 29, when he led one of the biggest protests, to make sure people are paid on the value of their labor, and also created institutions that serve the needs of the people. They created all these foundations for us to leverage us. They were young people. So, but then we also need to create this opportunity for young people to excel and flourish. If we don't, it will be very difficult. Today in the United States, they have one of the youngest mayors in the United States. I forget the name of the state. I don't know, either 19 or 20 years. So it depends on the level playing field. And of course, we have a very young mayor in KMC. Arguably one of the youngest mayor in the history of KMC. But more space should be open for young people to excel in different facets in all their industries. You know, the government could do better. I know it cannot be overnight, but you know, we could try
gradually.
Yes.
Important. Like, but also, I mean, do you think the youth of also have some part to play in this? I mean, joint to back way. At times, most of the individuals that in this country center their argument about the government that the government is not, I mean, providing what the youth want. But now, do you also think whether there is another problem that is from the side of the youth?
Sometimes on ambitious nature of young people. You know, some young people are truly lazy. They want to have everything on a silver platter.
Absolutely.
But majorly, to be honest with you, government should provide facilities. Like for instance, you look at here, we don't have parks. You know, I learned recently, KMC in partnership with Africell built a park recreational center where young people could go and be engaged in sporting activities and during their leisure and other exciting events. So those are primary responsibilities of the government. The government have a responsibility, both local and central, to actively engage young people in all facets of development. That is why they need to partner with the private sector, you know, to do this. But also there are certain young people that are very lazy, right? Lazy in the sense that every morning you wake up, you sit at one place, you refuse to go to school, or you refuse to go and learn skill to enhance your life and support yourself. You sit in the woo or in the ghetto all day talking about Europe. In 5 years, 10 years, you become redundant. You become a liability to the state. That is also a very big problem. So I think every young people, they need to first jump and work hard, you know, and do what is in their interest. Because if you work on self-development, it's not only about you. It's about your family, it's about your community, it's about the nation. So I'm super proud of most of the young Gambians. Super proud of Gambians. Most of the young people from home and from abroad. You know, they are doing exceptionally well at an individual level. You know, some have formed organizations and they're trying their level best engaging communities. Lately, I've seen a lot of young people from university trying to establish, you know, establish this mentorship programs, trying to guide young students, you know, from high school and from upper basic school to have a shape in their career
before they reach that particular
exactly, which is very encouraging and assuring. So yeah, young people are trying. They're doing very well.
Like you mentioned, the government have a huge part to play.
Primary responsibility.
Considering that in the Gambia, mostly like in the area of sports, if you visit CRR, there is no mini park where a standard football pitch where young boys could be proud of, where they will be able to showcase their talents without any difficulty. So like these are some of the things that are lacking. Like the entire Sierra guys known. You go to Pasay, the Pasay mini one is just normal, as normal as the far to main field. So like the absence of these facilities also are some of the factors that contribute for this youth to live. If you go to Senegal, you would not talk about having some of these things in place. Most of these things are available. That's why most of the youth, whenever we met in competition, like in this aspect, they would be very comfortable in us because the facilities and the grounds are all well prepared at the grassroots level, so everything is okay with them. So now, Mr. Dibba, also now, hence you've talked about these causes and of course the challenges that this will bring to a particular country. What do you think should be the stand of the government now towards this? Not only the government, towards tackling this problem.
It's a collective responsibility. This is all of us. You know, we all have a role to play in this. Government cannot do it all.
Absolutely.
But obviously they should set the pace for us. You know, they should really set the pace for. Like I said, first all these problems we have to look at our education system first. You know, a comprehensive overhaul of the education system, tailor it in a way that it will solve our basic problems.
Absolutely.
But also we also need to we have the Ministry of Youth and Sports and its state-led agencies. And of course private sectors that work with the Ministry of Youth and Sport, like the Gambia Youth Chamber of Commerce, right? So it's a matter of having a serious conversation, you know, an honest and a frank discussion.
Absolutely.
after having an honest and a frank discussion, do an assessment, research, have your empirics, and seek for funding wherever you need to fund it, whether it will come from the taxpayers' money or whether it will come from development partners, and try to fill certain gaps, create recreational facilities, provide jobs, give loans to young people to start their business. So if you look at, for instance, Gambia, every region could specialize when it comes to farming or agriculture. Like, let's say, for instance, in the North Bank region, we could specialize only on crop production. You go to CRR, we could specialize only on rice production.
Absolutely.
So sometimes we don't necessarily need to receive grant and aids from development partners. What we need to do is, like when China and Japan were ready for development, they sent their young people to go in America, in the UK, in Switzerland, to go and learn these skills, these technologies, modern farmings and mechanizations. Within a decade or two, there are a lot of Japanese and Chinese young people who are ready for national development. Reservoir of trained young Japanese and Chinese. Africa could do the same. The Gambia could do the same. Before we receive millions from Europeans or from the Chinese or from the Arabs, what we could do is take these young people in different areas of interest, let them go and learn these skills. When they come, give them tools and resources, let them exhibute what they have learned. Within a short period of time, you'll see a change.
Indeed.
Without a doubt about that.
Indeed, I mean, quite important.
And you see, China was a developing country in the 1960s, still developing, some will argue, but it's moving at a supersonic speed, one of the biggest economy in the world. It was a hopeless case compared to Nigeria and the Gambia. Singapore compared to Nigeria and the Gambia was also a hopeless case. You look at, you look at Botswana, although in Africa, doing very well, better than Portugal and Malta when it comes to per capita income. So Botswana is endowed with diamond. They translate their blessings into prosperity to benefit their citizens. And Gambia too have resources. We have the sun, we have the land, we have the sea. We could utilize these resources at our advantage.
Of course.
Create jobs, provide clean energy, so that at least, everybody in the Gambia would live in dignity, will live in freedom, and will live in prosperity, that no one will dare dream, to risk your life in the Mediterranean Sea or in the Sahara Desert to reach Europe. Switzerland have little or no natural resources, but it's one of the richest or wealthiest country on earth. Gambia is naturally richer than Sweden and Germany because they don't have sunlight all over throughout the year. Their lands are not fertile more than our lands. And Gambia, we have the river Gambia, half fresh, half salty. So it depends on how we utilize our resources to our advantage.
Muhammad said that we must, utilize our resources to our advantage. And of course, just to remind you, it is your current affairs show here on Fine TV Gambia, your Olivier Point. And then our guest today is Mr. Muhammed Lamin Dibba, of course, an MA, a candidate at the Geneva Graduate Institute in Switzerland. Mr. Dibba, we've also learned that your interest is not only based on migration, it's also, you have some interest in state building. So, Muhammad, how would you, describe the state of our nation right now?
It's in different folds. It could be two. There are areas that we do well, and there are areas that we don't do well. When I came to the Gambia, I was very amazed with the infrastructure that I saw around Porsibi Table, towards Airport Johnson. That was when I was away 1.5 years. That wasn't there, and I believe that is a huge development because transportation and road networks are very important.
Of course,
very, very important. And there are areas that we are not doing very well. When it comes to providing basic needs like electricity and water, still couldn't be stable in the Gambia. And I think we could improve that. And secondly, there is huge unemployment gap among young people. I think government needs to look into that. We are not doing very well when it comes to that. And also, I believe The cost of living everywhere, yes, it's high, but it's so higher in the Gambia. I couldn't believe internet is more expensive in the Gambia than in
quite expensive
than in Switzerland, which is one of the most expensive countries in the world. So I think we need to look into those issues. We need to look at the holistic approach to our economy. At least we make sure that the standard of living is a little bit lower so that people could be able to live sustainably, and also create jobs. Like I mentioned earlier, and the unemployment is too huge in the Gambia. So we need to look at these things very, very well and make sure that we provide solutions to them. And institutional disciplines are very important. I'll start from the hospitals. People don't come to work early, especially nurses and medical doctors, which is a recipe for disaster in our country. So it's a utterly disregard for
the people you served.
And people are still dying in our hospitals about diseases that shouldn't kill them. Today, there are certain sicknesses, if you have them, you have to travel to overseas. And it shouldn't be that way. I think the Ministry of Health need to look into that. I think Gambia received a lot of goodwill since 2017, from outside. And by now, we shouldn't be talking about these basic problems. And most of the hospitals I visited, even in the combos, are not equipped. Most of the times you go to the hospitals, they refer you to pharmacies to go and get medicines, which I believe we should improve on that area. And people are still dying in labor. Shortly before I left, there was no blood bags at Edward Francis Small Teaching Hospital. Blood bags, which is very cheap. And I hope that this time there are blood bags. In fact, every hospital and are very adequate. So I think we need to look into this. When it comes to trade as well, sometimes I see people in Geneva, Gambian diplomats, Gambia civil servants in Geneva. I ask myself, what unnecessary travels? I think government need to look into that.
I think the last time the president said, he would have stopped all individuals, foreign ministers, moving from the Gambia to other countries on basis of their own, unless if they are called for international conferences and which would be sponsored by that particular, organization. But this is a question. Many are still questioning or would question the government whether this thing is really happening.
Unnecessary international travels. There are some Gambian staff from the Gambia government I bump into, mostly in Lido, because I'm not very far from the embassy.
Okay.
I'm not very far from the United Nations. So most of the times I'll meet with them and I'll be very surprised. You ask them, some of them wouldn't even attend conferences. And I think government also need to start providing mechanisms wherein they themselves will pay the hotels of those who are traveling. If there is any amount of money that is left by the state, it should be returned back to the state coffers. And I think that is very significant, So sometimes people use these travel opportunities as a means to loot or to squander our little state resources that we have. So I think these unnecessary travels need to be suspended for now, and we focus on the most important thing. We have buildings, schools, but they go to the teachers training college is still, inadequate when it comes to resources and the qualities of teachers that are there. Today, I'm told university is getting handicapped because most of the lecturers are departing. Some departments doesn't even have a PhD. So we also need to look at holistically the education system. We need to look at the health sector. We need to look at the agricultural sector, which is very broad. We need to look at that, especially the fishing industry. We also need to look at the fishing industry as well, which is part of fish farming, which is part of agriculture, actually.
So in the area of, security, what measures do you have? It's the constant, killing of individuals, it's just constant now, nowadays. So how would you describe the Gambia, within these 5 years?
Yeah, people are not secure. They felt insecure. In fact, one of the reasons why people are leaving for the backway journey to risk their lives. And recently, I've heard that a lady was killed in his bureau.
Yeah,
in cold blood, which was very sad. And then there was a shooting, like a killing of, I don't know, police officers, two police officers a few months ago at the Sukura traffic lights with a lot of crime rates happening in the Gambia. So I think we need to intensify the security sector reform. I don't know how far. I'm not an expert in security.
Okay.
Basically, to be honest, I have friends who delved into those issues, but I still feel government need to restore the confidence of the people, because we gave them lives and properties to protect. That is why we established the police. So the police need to be equipped, they need to be trained, they need to be incentivized, they need to be giving incentives and encourage, motivate, so that at least we can have very tight security. People feel comfortable. Everybody should be free to go out anytime you wish to. People shouldn't be closing their stores and in the next morning it is already, people have already break in. People shouldn't be killed in cold blood just like that. I mean, it's terrible. So I think we need to work collectively. We need to work, and then we should also serve as citizen police, for instance. We report any crime wherever we see and suspect it. Let's arrest ourselves any criminals and hand over them to the police without harming them. This is happening a lot in Switzerland, at least in a country where I lived and know a bit. Nobody violates the law. If the citizens see you doing that, they confront you. So we could also do the same to help the police. So it should be, a collective responsibility, not only the police as a state institution, but also citizens as well. Yeah.
I mean, basically, critic would say that, at times, if a person, stole a property, so the moment you take to the person to the police, and the next day you will see the person walking on the streets. So that's why most of the time you see, people, whenever, they get hold of a thief, usually he's beaten to death. You understand? But like such things, I think should be avoided.
Yeah.
The best thing is that we must, trust, the men that we put there in uniform, that is the police officers, that they should try by all means to ensure that things, goes on the right way that we all expected it.
Institutional discipline, like I said, is important, and it should be across the board. I just mentioned about the hospital, but it should be across the board. People must follow the law to the letter. If somebody violates the law, punish the person according to law. If somebody steals a property, just act based on the laws on the Constitution. If the person should go behind bars before 72 hours and be ironed to the courts, why not? But just make sure that the victim is compensated. People should not go scot-free because, in violating the rights of others. It's completely unacceptable. So first, it's about corruption. We have to eliminate it in all the sectors of the Gambia, from the police, the military, to the education industry, to the health, agriculture, wherever it might be. So for me, that's an act of corruption, deviating from standards. And it shouldn't be that way. But what citizens must not do is to take the laws into their own hands.
That's
For the fact that a particular police station or a particular police is not doing what is expected of them doesn't mean that you should also violate the law. By beating, the thief that you caught, for instance, or the person you suspect to have committed a particular crime. Yeah.
Interesting. So, Muhammad, being an master's degree student, at the Geneva Graduate Institute, do you have any intention of coming back to the country to serve after your studies, or after completing your thesis?
I will decide that when I complete my thesis. For now, I don't know.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So we wish we could have you back to Ghana to serve, because people like you are quite needed to ensure that things change in this country. So we hope so that you come back and serve this country. So Mohammed, we are almost at the tail end of the program. So what would be your final message to the Gambians down there regarding migration, or any other thing that you would wish to discuss?
If anybody wants to migrate, let's migrate according to the Global Compact for regular, safe, orderly migration. Let's seek for legal ways to migrate. And it's not all cool and dandy in Europe. It's not easy. Gambia is considered as a safe country, and if you travel first, what you have to ask yourself, what am I going to do in Europe? Am I going there to study or to hustle? So in the countries where I'm privileged to visit, about 16 European countries, and in all those countries you must have a resident permit or a work permit to be able to work, and you cannot just get it out of the blues. So Lugana Barisa Women's Theatre is you have to seek for an asylum, and that might take a very long process. So it's very, very challenging. So first, define yourself first, know what you want and stay there. Don't travel just for the sake of you want to travel or for the sake of others are traveling. There are people who have traveled since 2017. They still cannot get the asylums approved. You know, those asylums that were rejected, some were asked to leave particular countries where they are. So you don't want to spend all your life in refugee camp rather than doing nothing. You know, so it's bad. You know, most of the time people travel, those who travel through family reunification, also have to go through integration process. You know, so if you go to a country that's first official language is not English, you have to learn their official language. If it is English, like United States or in the UK, then that is easier for you to integrate. Yeah. So, but for other countries like Germany, Switzerland, it's a little bit challenging. But yeah, I've seen a lot of people that have also get a visa, like 3 months, they violated their terms of visa. That is also irregular migration. Once you violate your terms of visa, you are an irregular migrant, illegally staying in that particular country. That is if you overstayed. But once you also giving a 3 months visa or a 6 months visa, you're not allowed to work, but you undertake a job. You're also an irregular migrant because you're doing an illegal job, which is completely bad. And nobody wants to be working and be hiding from the police all the time. So if you're going to Europe or you're going to America, make sure you use safe legal ways to go, and make sure if you wanted to go as well, try, if you have a job, why not go and work if you think that will give you economic empowerment and that will help you more to come back and invest in your country. If you want to go acquire knowledge and come back, brilliant, fantastic. You know, but don't risk your life to the back way. It doesn't worth it. It doesn't really worth it.
Thank you, Muhammed. And of course, it is a pleasure having you here, and we are grateful. And of course, we look forward to having you here again whenever I return back to Gambia. And esteemed viewers, I mean, like I mentioned earlier, this is your current affairs show here on Fine TV Gambia, the only viewpoint. I was your host, Ibrahim Bay, and of course, my guest today was a young Gambian intellectual by the name Muhammed, Lamin, Dibba, of course, master's degree, student at the Geneva, Graduate Institute in Switzerland. He's specializing in mobility and of course migration and boundaries. So, Mr. Dabo, thank you for honoring our invitation. We are grateful. And then do join us next week, the same time, the same venue. It is Fine TV Gambia, your only viewpoint. Bye bye.
Bye.